While the town of Possum Springs is home to a handful of unique and interesting characters, there are two in particular that really stand out amongst the crowd. So much so, in fact, that the game's ending will actually change depending on whom you spend a majority of your time with. So for this video, I thought it'd be fun to compare the two across several different categories and see who ranks out on top. As these lists often go, let me begin by just saying how incredibly difficult this was to finalize. Each character is multifaceted and filled with depth, and neither pathline really left me feeling dissatisfied. As our experiences will differ, so too will the particular traits or scenes we resonate more with. First on deck, we have Beatrice Santello, or B for short. Main points here are crocodile, gothic attire, cigarette/smoker, finally an Egyptian Ankh symbol, which translates to life. On the other side of things, we have Gregg Lee, or simply Gregg. For him, we have fox, punk rock attire, weapons, i.e. knives, crossbow, and he often sports a pickelhaube, which is a type of police headgear. For this one, the tiebreaker boiled down to how each trait or accessory reflected back to the character and their broader story. For B, this mainly involves her smoking habit as well as the clothing that she wears. While we'll discuss the finer details in later categories, we can see her smoking habit as a clear representation of the general stress she has on a daily basis. Additionally, we learn her outfit is from U Revolution, aka the hot topic of Possum Springs. As this is a store from May and B's childhood, it lends itself in suggesting a loss of youth, and is really something B chooses to wear to retain any bit that she can. Gregg, on the other hand, exudes a very punk rock vibe from his leather jacket to his pickelhaube. I can almost guarantee he has at least one album by The Clash sitting on his desk drawer. Similar to B, his attire is more than just for show. Punk rock in itself is often very energetic and usually carries themes of rebellion or anarchy, both of which are direct reflections of Gregg's demeanor and enthusiasm for crimes. As the spirit of punk rock should never die, we see just how hard Gregg clings to this, especially when May returns home. Again, this plays into his broader arc, but we know immediately that this is a character who is young at heart on a path that forces him to grow up. To be honest, I didn't really expect the appearances of these characters to reflect so strongly on their personalities and backstories. It was a tough one, but for this round, I'm awarding it to B. The clothing, the smoking, these are all attributes that take on entirely different meanings once you've experienced her story in full. I wasn't entirely sure what to make of the Ankh symbol on her shirt, and it actually almost cost her the round. If you do know what this means in the context of her character, please let me know in the comments. Winner, B. For B, a lot of her personality boils down to cold, direct/unapologetic, cynical, pragmatic, critical/judgmental, sarcastic, and finally responsible. For Gregg, he is largely energetic, goofy/over the top, adventurous, impulsive, rebellious, and finally loyal. It's important to clarify here that not all of these traits remained consistent throughout the entire game. In the case of B, a large part of her arc was in rekindling her friendship with May, an event that saw dramatic shifts in her interactions. Alternatively, Gregg displays several moments of bipolarism, going from cheery one moment to somber and contemplative the next. As a whole, this one goes to Gregg. Simply put, his personality is infectious and is unmatched in the much needed levity that he brings to this world. Also, the arm flailing thing. Winner, Gregg. For B, we are told early on that she and May were actually best friends in high school, until they slowly drifted apart in their later years. B was valedictorian of the class, and also had eager plans to leave for college. Unfortunately, these plans were derailed when her mother became ill and required extensive medical treatment. Both the medical bills and funeral costs really put her family in financial stress and forced her to sacrifice her childhood home. As if this wasn't bad enough, her father also began to suffer mental breakdown, forcing B to step up and become the primary provider for the family. She essentially manages the family business on her own and often receives little to no appreciation from her father. In the Proximity hangout, we learn just how unhappy B is and how desperately she strives to gain any semblance of the life she dreamed she'd once have. For Gregg, we actually don't get much info on his side of things. We know that he and May have been best friends for a while and often partook in crimes. It's evident that Gregg's family life wasn't the greatest, as he self-describes himself as parking lot trash and carries deep-seated self-esteem issues, especially as it relates to his relationship with Angus. The notable event in Gregg's life occurred when he accidentally released a pen of sheep on his uncle's farm. While a good portion of those sheep were traumatically killed, it is the one that escaped that actually stuck with Gregg. Like the sheep, he wanted to leave Possum Springs and never look back. To me, this is an easy winner. Compared to Gregg, we get a far more comprehensive look into the life Bee has had up until this point. The sheer hardships and sacrifices that she's endured are tragic and well reflected in her overall character. Winner, Bee. By the time we meet Bee, she's already relegated herself to a life of responsibility and adulthood, best reflected in her graveyard game with May, where she proclaims, "The scariest stuff is actually really boring." Over the course of the game, May is regularly chastised whenever she suggests Bee to take more control of her life, Bee considering these to be childish solutions. Bee clearly resents the circumstances she's in, but also feels she has no other choice. Alternatively, we learn early on that Gregg has upcoming plans with Angus to finally leave Possum Springs. He has been free of mischief, primarily choosing to put his collective dream over his desire to be young and rebellious again. When May returns to Possum Springs, she acts as a catalyst to bring this desire to the forefront. Within their first hangout, Gregg even professes to May that he's been living too clean, and this drives the multiple crimes they conduct in their subsequent hangouts. May doesn't push against this, and to some extent even encourages this behavior. In my opinion, the key moment of growth is reflected in the final scene of the game on the band stage. Here, each is propositioned with an idea that starkly contrasts to the life they've been living at the start. For Bee, this is a road trip, something Bee would have never considered in a million years, especially considering her responsibilities and family obligations. For Gregg, it is a request to live together, an opportunity to continue their wild antics and never truly grow up. While both characters pass this test and demonstrate a willingness to break from their routines and desires, I can't help but notice a reluctance from Bee, who instead suggests May to follow up in a year. While I recognize this is already a tremendous step for Bee, who would have already flat out declined at the start, I still wish to have seen a little more trust in the unknown on her part. On the other hand, Gregg, albeit somewhat awkwardly, declines on May's offer and chooses to pack away his old antics in favor of a better tomorrow. Another tough one, but this round goes to Gregg. Winner, Gregg. Bee begins this story often cold and impatient with May. She clearly holds a residual grudge against her and often throws pointed insults at how much cooler or smarter May used to be. A lot of their early interactions can be very heated and sometimes even end in threats of violence. In many ways, the personalities of May and Bee are opposite each other. Bee is serious while May is whimsical. Bee operates with practicality while May indulges in the unworldly. This dynamic invokes the idea of opposites attracting, as both have something valuable to offer the other. May provides Bee with a bit of levity in her life, while Bee is unafraid to ground May and call her out on her faults. Gregg, on the other hand, starts from a place of love, and his personality easily permeates the early interactions in the game. The lighthearted minigames, the sunset motor drives, the unquestioned ride-or-die mentality are all major wins for the relationship. The two have inside jokes and are comfortable enough just to relax with one another, providing a much-needed distraction from some of their underlying issues. Ultimately, this round goes to Bee. While I'll always hold a special place for Gregg's personality as well as that one lake scene in particular, we have to choose the character that is truly best for May's growth. Throughout the story, Bee demonstrated genuine concern in May's well-being and even encourages her to seek real help. When we compare the interactions between May and Bee/Gregg, we see Bee's end result in more give and take. Each wants something better for the other, and their renewed friendship hints that this may be within reach. With Gregg, however, both characters end up regressing to a childhood antic and otherwise turn away from real growth. That's not to say it was all bad with Gregg, however. May allowed for Gregg to indulge in his repressed desires and paved the way for Gregg to finally decide what's important to him and to commit fully. In a way, both help the other realize the fault of living in the past, and because of this, both can now step confidently into the future. Winner, Bee. Having gone back into this game and playing the multiple path lines, I'm once again reminded just how well crafted and poignant this game can be. Neither character is objectively better or worse, and both path lines offer genuine moments that reflect the real ups and downs of life. As I said in the beginning, I think a large portion of who you resonate with will depend on the person you are or the different things you've gone through. As the tagline of the game says, at the end of everything, hold on to anything. Well, that's it for today's list. Let me know down in the comments which character you prefer and if you would have ranked this list any differently. Of course, if you did enjoy this video, liking and subscribing goes a long way in supporting the channel. Thanks again.